Welcome everyone, this is Granny's GodPod 72, Birthday Celebrations. This is just a quick few thoughts while you grab a quick coffee break amidst wrapping presents and preparing the turkey or whatever you might be cooking this Christmas. Have you ever forgotten someone's birthday and had to send a belated card? I have. Have you ever got the date wrong? While we would have great difficulty in forgetting the date of Christ's Christmas birthday, are we actually getting the date wrong? Significant events in Jesus' life take place on Hebrew holy days. His death at Passover, the day of the resurrection at the Feast of First Fruits, and Pentecost, the Hebrew Shavuot. Two of the Gospels describe Christ's birth, but no specific date is given. According to Clement of Alexandria, several different days for Christ's birth had been proposed by various Christian groups. Surprising as it may seem, Clement doesn't mention December the 25th at all. In the late 2nd century, there was great uncertainty, but also a considerable amount of interest in dating Jesus' birth. By the 4th century, however, we find references to two dates that were widely recognised and now also celebrated as Jesus' birthday. December the 25th in the Western Roman Empire and January the 6th in the East. It seems the Emperor Constantine was responsible for December the 25th being chosen as the date that Christians would celebrate Jesus' birth in the West, and he may have chosen that date because it was the most popular at the time and so would cause the least controversy. The earliest mention of December the 25th as Jesus' birthday comes from a mid-4th century Roman almanac that lists the death dates of various Christian bishops and martyrs. The first date listed, December the 25th, translated from the Latin, has Christ was born in Bethlehem of Judea. But can we find clues to a more realistic birth date for Christ? Luke 2 verse 8 tells us the shepherds were living in the fields, keeping nightly watch over their flocks. Were they watching their flocks perhaps because it was the time for lambing? If so, that would suggest it was spring, or the Hebrew month of Nisan. Since Jesus was the Lamb of God, this would be very appropriate, and more so when we realise that Bethlehem was where the lambs for the temple sacrifice were raised. Exodus 12 tells us that the Passover lamb should be a year old, so it was born at Passover the previous year. So again, the month of Nisan, which means the beginning. In Exodus 12 verse 6, the Hebrews were told to take a lamb, or according to Brown Driver Briggs, receive a lamb, on the 10th day of this first month. Many Jews have still not received or accepted the lamb. They were to bring the chosen lamb into the house for 4 days on the 10th day of the month. Nisan 10 is the day of the lambs, the same day that Jesus is entering Jerusalem, the Lamb of God entering his house. Jesus dies on Nisan 14, the day of Passover, so it is suggested that Jesus died on Friday, the 3rd of April, AD 33. The 1st of Nisan is the very beginning of the Hebrew year, the real new year of God, as told to Moses in Exodus 12 verse 2. This begins the new calendar, just as Jesus' birth brings a new calendar, changing it from BC to AD. The Hebrew calendar is based on the moon, and a new moon begins the month. The full moon, or the fulfillment of the moon, happens in the middle of the month. As Nisan 14th to 15th is the full moon when Jesus died, it is logical to think that his beginning would be at the new moon, Nisan 1. It is more than my pay grade to understand, but apparently there is another way of calculation. Jonathan Kahn explains, Luke 1 verse 5 describes the priest called Zacharias, the father of John the Baptizer, being called to serve in the temple. This was done according to a set rota, and Zacharias was of the division of priests headed by Abijah, which was allotted the 8th turn, as it says in 1 Chronicles 24 verse 10. One day when that division was on duty, it fell by lot for Zacharias to enter the temple to burn incense. When Luke tells us Zacharias was struck dumb by an angel foretelling his wife's conception. Then the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and they provide a calendar of priests, which begins on a Wednesday at the equinox. In 70 AD, it is recorded there that the temple was destroyed when a certain priest was serving in the temple. Whether the timeline is worked forward from Zacharias or backward from the Dead Sea Scrolls, it matches. Abijah was ministering on March the 20th or Nisan 1. Zacharias' wife Elizabeth conceived, and 6 months later Gabriel visited Mary. If Elizabeth conceived in March, Mary would have then conceived in August, with a 9-month gestation taking the birth to springtime. Another fact that might support this date is that the tabernacle took 9 months to complete, and Exodus 40 verse 2 tells us that when it was completed, Moses was told to erect it on the first day of the first month, that is Nisan 1. John's Gospel 1 verse 14 said, "The Word became flesh and lived," or tabernacled among us. Just saying. So Jesus' true date of birth may be Nisan 1, and next year that day will fall on Tuesday, April the 9th, 2024. I don't imagine anyone wanting to upset such an ancient tradition, but since Christmas can be quite a hectic time of year, April the 9th might be a good day to set aside some time for a bit of peaceful prayer and reflection. What do you think? I'm off for a cup of tea and a mince pie. Here's wishing you all a happy Christmas and a very blessed New Year.